I welcome you all to my channel Conquer Physics, and I think that during this lockdown period it will help you a lot in studying physics. Today we start with the first chapter, that is electric charges and fields. Actually, this chapter belongs to a branch of physics called electrostatics, which deals with the studies of charges at rest. Okay, so we'll be discussing in detail what are charges. So we'll start with what is charge. We all are familiar with the word charge. So what do you mean by charge? Actually, this charge, the word charge, it means a physical quantity which is just like mass. Mass is also a physical quantity. So just like mass, charge also is a physical quantity, and we say it is a inherent property or intrinsic property of matter. See, how will you define mass? The same way. That means it is an inherent property of matter, that is charge. And when we speak about charge, the charge as a physical quantity, it is a what type of quantity? It is a scalar quantity. You know what is meant by scalar quantity and vector quantity. So this charge is a scalar quantity. It doesn't have any direction, and its SI unit is coulomb. SI unit of charge is coulomb. So this is what we can speak about charge in the beginning. What about charge? So charge is a inherent property of matter, and its SI unit is coulomb. Coulomb, and its notation is C, and it is a scalar quantity. And when we speak about charges, actually the charges were first discovered in experiments which belong to frictional electricity, we say now. Frictional electricity means by charges which are produced by rubbing. You might have heard, and in your childhood also you might have done some experiments, that is taking a scale and rubbing against your hair and showing it to small bits of paper. This bits of paper will be attracted towards this scale, that you might have seen. So that type of what charging, we call it as frictional electricity. So now we go to that details of frictional electricity. So we will discuss the topic of frictional electricity. So our first topic of discussion is frictional electricity. So what do you mean by frictional electricity? Frictional electricity means the charging by rubbing. Okay, so the simple example of charging by rubbing, I told what we usually do in our childhood days also. And there are a number of objects I have written here. So among these objects also, when one is rubbed against the other, this charging was observed. So for example, if we take this silk, when silk is rubbed with the glass, suppose glass is rubbed with the silk, it is seen that this glass rod, so what I say, glass rod you have, this is glass rod, and when glass rod is rubbed with the silk, okay, it is seen that glass acquires positive charge and silk acquires negative charge. So the same thing, that means the same silk can be rubbed against some other materials also. Suppose if we okay, glass itself, suppose we rub it against fur. If glass is rubbed against, so glass rod itself is rubbed against cat's fur or something, if it is rubbed against fur, it's seen that glass acquires negative charge, and for cat's fur it acquires positive charge. Okay, so this charging by rubbing, it's usual, and that electricity or that charge gained by the objects by rubbing, we call it as frictional electricity. So simple example I said, so glass with the silk and glass with the fur. So the thing is this, what charge these objects acquires by rubbing, it depends on the position of such objects in the series. I have written all the objects in a particular order actually. So in this order, if you take one object, actually, if the two objects, that means as we took silk and glass and silk, so when glass is rubbed with the silk, so in this series, no, the position of glass is above silk. So the objects which acquires or whose position is above in this series, such objects will acquire positive charge, and whose position is below, no, so those objects will acquire negative charge. That is what is observed. Similarly, when I said when glass is rubbed with the fur, so fur's position is on the top. So when it is rubbed with the glass, fur acquires positive charge, so glass will acquire negative charge. This is what is happening. So whether the objects get positive or negative charge, it depends on this series actually. Fur, flannel, sealing wax, glass, cotton, paper, silk, a human body, wood, metals, rubber, resin, like that it goes. It consists of many objects in that order. But actually that it is not of that much importance for us, but try to understand that the charge gained by the particular object, it depends on the position of that particular object in that series. Now we will think what is happening during this rubbing. So all the objects, it's made of atoms. Atoms consist of electrons. So when we rub one object against another body or a silk or a fur, whatever it is, there will be exchange of electrons. Electrons are being exchanged between these two objects. So the object which loses electrons, the object which lose electron, that object will acquire positive charge. And who gain electron, no, that object will acquire negative charge. This is actually what is happening during rubbing. So the electrons are being exchanged. So the one who loses the charge will get positive charge, and the one who gains the electrons will get negative charge. This is what is happening in rubbing. So exchange of electrons. So of course there will be slight difference in mass. Actually electrons are having very small mass. No, the mass of the electron is 9.1 into 10 raised to minus 31 kilogram. So its mass is very less. So depending on the number of electrons being exchanged, the mass of that objects will change. So this is about frictional electricity. Now when we speak about frictional electricity, one device we need to discuss, which is called as gold leaf electroscope. So simply we call it as electroscope. And what is the use of this electroscope? Electroscope is used to detect the presence of charges. So electroscope is used to detect, the presence of charges. So whether it is positive or negative, that also we can know by using electroscope. So standard electroscope is a gold leaf electroscope. Gold leaf electroscope. Gold leaf electroscope, it consists of rectangular box made of glass. Okay, rectangular box or an enclosed glass vessel in rectangular shape. And in that we will have a metallic rod on which you have a gold leaf. Okay, here now we will discuss an electroscope which we can make ourselves, and that's what electroscope we will discuss now. So its structure also we will discuss. It's very easy to make also. So all what you need is one aluminium rod. You need an aluminium rod that is easily available at home also. Curtain rod or whatever it is, very narrow only we need. So you have aluminium rod, and at one end of the aluminium rod you have a ball. Okay, metallic ball itself, aluminium ball itself, that shape only. Okay, then the other end, no, that you will flatten. You will flatten this end. So this is the first thing, that is an aluminium rod. And you will take a bottle, glass jar you will take. It's made of glass. Okay, and this glass jar, it's a opening that opening, you will close it with a cork, rubber cork, so that through the cork this rod is going into. So this is the arrangement of that electroscope. Okay, so you have a jar, and through the jar you have what, the rubber cork or whatever it is, that cork made of rubber, and through that cork, this aluminum rod is going through. So the portion which is inside the glass jar, that portion has that foil, and here you have, so flattened portion it is, and on the top you have that ball. And one more thing we will do, that is at this flat portion we will attach one aluminium foil, very small piece of aluminium foil, say 6 centimeter or something in length. Fold it in the middle and keep it in this V shape, means fix it to that flat portion of the this aluminium rod. This is what we will do. For fixing you can use cello tape. So this is the fundamental arrangement of, very simple arrangement, electroscope. And what is the use of electroscope? It is used to detect the presence of charges. And you know how it detects the presence of charges? When you bring, that means a charged glass rod or something, suppose that glass is rubbed against silk, so glass acquires positive charge, so that glass is brought in contact with this ball. Okay, so the thing is this by contact, this ball acquires positive charge, same charge it will acquire, and that charge is acquired by this aluminium rod also, and these two leaves also acquire this charge. So both the leaves are having what, positive charge. So these two leaves will show what, a divergence. It will show a divergence. So divergence shown by, so when you show a glass rod here, if it shows a divergence, it means that this glass rod is a charged one. If it is not having any charge, neutral object, if you have brought in contact with this ball, you can say that there is no charge for that object. So this is how, whether you can say the object is charged or not. Okay, now how can you say whether this means object which you have brought, whether it carries positive or negative charge? For that purpose you have to use a charged electroscope. You have to use a charged electroscope. What do you mean by charged electroscope? This electroscope is already having a charge. Suppose it has positive charge. This electroscope is having positive charge. Okay, so the already it is having positive charge, and if you are bringing, so it will show some divergence in the beginning itself. In the beginning itself it is showing some divergence. Okay, now if you bring a object and if it shows divergence, it means that already it is positively charged. Okay, and again its divergence increases, means the positive charge on this rod has increased. That is why the divergence increased. So what does it mean? The object which you have brought is a positively charged one. On the other hand, if you have brought a negatively charged rod, how will be the observation? The rod is negatively charged, maybe the glass which is rubbed with a cat's fur. Okay, so when it is brought, what will be the observation? The observation is that divergence decreases, because already we took a charged electroscope, positively charged electroscope. So when you bring negatively charged object in contact with this ball, no, the charge on this aluminium foil, it decreases, so divergence decreases. So in that way you can identify. So by using a charged electroscope, so charge on the electroscope, you should know whether it is positively charged or negatively charged. So by using a charged electroscope, you can find out the type of charge carried by an object. So electroscope is a device used to detect the presence of charge and also to know about the type of charge. So in the discussion I was telling positive, negative. So that is the fundamental thing about charge. That is, There are two types of charges. I told charges are fundamental, or they are, charge is an inherent property of matter, and there are two types of charges, positive and negative charge. Okay, charge can be positive or negative. So that is about electroscope. So we are discussing about what electrostatics. Okay, so we discussed frictional electricity and electroscope. Now we move on to yet another simple thing, that is the classification of materials into conductors and insulators. So from lower class onwards, you know this, that is conductors and insulators. What do you mean by a conductor and an insulator? Conductor means what? Which passes electricity. The objects which passes electricity, we call them as what? Conductors. And which all belongs to this group conductors? All metals they belong to this conductors, and their alloys also, all the alloys of these metals also belong to this category, that is conductors. So conductors, they passes electricity through them, and all the metals, whatever metals you know, those metals, they belong to this category conductors. They easily pass current through them or electricity through them, and which do not allow current to pass through them, that is known as insulators. And you know, materials, wood, plastic, etc, etc, whatever objects you know that what porcelain, all those objects, they do not allow current or electricity to pass through them. Such objects we call them as insulators. So generally the objects are classified into two. So we spoke about that frictional electricity, no, still that list is there. You can see almost means many objects you can see it, they are insulators actually. So how do they acquire or what is the significance of such things? So the thing is this, all those insulators, glass is insulator, cotton is insulator, paper is insulator, but on rubbing, no, when the exchange of charge is taking place, that means exchange of electron is taking place, such objects acquire charge. Okay, so that charging take place with insulators also. The only difference between them, insulators and conductors, is conductors allow charge through them, means charge to pass through them, and this insulators do not allow to pass through them. That is what the main difference. Okay, so both the objects, that means conductors and insulators, we can charge them by rubbing. The frictional electricity, it is applicable for both. But what makes the difference is there, that is, in the case of an insulator, suppose you have a plastic ball. When you rub this plastic ball with something, suppose this plastic ball get charged negatively. So where you rubbed, no, suppose this is the region where you rubbed. Okay, so this charge, that negative charge, stays over that region only where you rubbed. The charges will not move from there. Instead of that, if you have a metallic ball, and when you rub on one side, suppose it also gains some negative charge, but that negative charge, no, gained by this metallic ball, it gets distributed uniformly throughout the surface of the this ball. This is the difference, main difference between conductor and insulator. In the case of insulator, the charge gained by the body stays where it is, or it cannot distribute that charges over its surface. Okay, where the charge was given, it will be there itself. In the case of conductors, actually metals, they distribute the charges gained by them equally over the surface. So whatever charge it gains, no, it gets accumulate, or it gets distributed uniformly throughout the surface. So this is the difference, main difference between conductors and insulators. So keep in mind, both conductors and insulators can be charged. Okay, but when charging, this is the difference. Okay, now so let's conclude what are the main methods of charging, which all methods, by which all methods you can charge an object, whether it is an insulator or a conductor, by which all methods you can charge them. First method we already discussed, that is by rubbing. Okay, so first method is by rubbing. By rubbing you can charge a body. Second method is by conduction. What do you mean by conduction? Suppose you have a what um, metallic sphere. Okay, it is arranged on an insulating stand. This is insulator and this is metal or conductor, and it is this also is insulator. So this is how a metallic ball is kept. Okay, now you bring a charged object in contact with this metallic ball. So this is positively charged object. This positively charged object, it is touching this metallic sphere. So of course by contact, this metallic sphere gets this positive charge. Okay, so this is what we mean by charging by conduction. So charging by rubbing we already discussed. Charging by conduction means this. That means by bringing a charged body in contact, you can make one body charged. Now, the third method is charging by induction. By the method of induction also you can charge a body by the method of induction. Okay, so what is meant by induction? So in induction, this physical contact is not there. You assume this same situation. You have a metallic sphere, okay, which is arranged over a insulating stand, and you are bringing a negatively charged body nearer to this metallic sphere. So metallic sphere was neutral first, electrically neutral. Now you are bringing a negatively charged object here. So here there is no physical contact. So there is presence of negative charge here, no? So you know in metal the free electrons are there, valence electrons. Those valence electrons, they will be attracted, the electrons which are free, those electrons will be attracted towards this not attracted, they will be repelled from this negative charge because you have brought negative charge here. So they will get repelled. So negative charge get repelled, electrons get repelled and they move to this side, the electrons. Okay, so if the electrons are moving to this side because of this repulsion from this side, equivalent amount of positive charge will means appear on the other side. Okay, so you have what the charge separation, you have charge separation in this metallic sphere. Now you suppose this side of this metallic sphere is earthed, okay, it's connected to grounded, or it is earthed. So earth is, you know, universal acceptor of electrons, and that earth will attract all these electrons. Okay, so this negative charge here, no, by earthing it disappears. This negative charge, it disappears and we remove earthing. So what happens? This sphere has got positively charged. Now negative charge which has accumulated this side has got earth. Now it has got positive charge on this side. Now if you remove, suppose you remove this negatively charged object now, so this metallic sphere is having positive charge. Not like this, the moment that negatively charged body is removed, no, this positive charges acquired by this sphere, it will get equally distributed over the surface. So you'll have a positively charged metallic sphere whose charge is equally or uniformly distributed over the surface. So this is what we mean by charging by induction. So the three methods of charging, what are the three methods of charging? Rubbing, by rubbing, that you know, when one object is rubbed against other, by the exchange of electrons it is getting charged. Then the second one is by conduction, so by physical contact the charges are getting shared, and the third one is by induction. So I explained how you can charge by induction. So these are the three methods of charging. Okay, now we move on to charge itself, that is we are speaking about charge. Okay, so we will discuss the fundamental properties of, there are three main properties of charges. So we move on to the properties of, basic properties of charges. So once again we recollect the points about charge, what all things we learned about charges yet. Charge is a scalar quantity, we said. Its SI unit is what? SI unit is coulomb, we already said. There are two types of charges, we said, positive and negative. Okay, that's what we spoke generally about this charge. Okay, now one more thing I would like to say, if two charges are brought towards each other, if they are kept means close to each other, what happens? So there will be a force acting between the two charges, and it is seen that like charges repel each other and unlike charges attract each other. What had I said? Like charges attract, not attract, unlike charges attract each other and like charges repel each other. So unlike charges attract each other and like charges repel each other. What do you mean by unlike charges? A positive and a negative, two charges I said. So if one positive charge is brought nearer to a negative charge, they will attract each other, they will have a force of attraction among them. Then on the other hand, like charges, that means a positive and a positive, and we have a negative and negative. So there will be force of repulsion between two positive charges and two negative charges. So that's what we generally say, like charges repel each other and unlike charges attract each other. So the first property of charge is additivity. So first property of charges is additivity. What do you mean by additivity of charges? It is very simple. Additivity, that means charges can be added just like real numbers. For example, we take an object. On one side it's having what, negative 10 coulomb, and on the other side it is having a charge plus 5 coulomb. It's only an example, can be an insulating object, but the values of charges, no, it is too big. Okay, so what the total charge is, you can just add like real number, negative 10 plus 5, it becomes plus 5 coulomb. So total charge becomes plus 5. So that's what we mean by additivity of charges. Charges can be added or subtracted, means it can be added just like real numbers. Or in short, if you have charges like Q1, Q2, Q3, etc. for a system up to Qn, the the total charge is given by Q1 plus Q2 plus etc. plus Qn, the sum of charges. So you can treat them just like real numbers. That's what we mean by additivity of charges. Now, second property of charge, it is conservation. Conservation of charge. Second property of charge, it is conservation, or charge is conserved. You are familiar with the conservation laws, conservation of energy, conservation of mass, etc. So the same way, what we say, charge is conserved, or charge can neither be created or nor be destroyed. So the thing is this, charge is conserved. So we can say like, for an isolated system. What I said, the word I used is isolated system. What do you mean by isolated system? Any object or any configuration which cannot interact with the surroundings or any other objects. That's what we mean by it is isolated. No interaction with others. That's what isolated. So for such an isolated system, its total charge is conserved. That's what we mean by conservation of charge. Okay, so if the total charge of a system remains constant, that's what we mean by conservation. So this conservation property, it has got an important application in nuclear physics and all. Nuclear physics. So there we'll have nuclear reactions where, so seeing one nuclear reaction, we have to look whether that nuclear reaction is possible or not. So how will we check? Is first step is looking for the charge on left hand side and right hand side. So for the reaction to be possible, the total charge on left hand side should be equal to total charge on right hand side, which means that during that reaction total charge remain conserved. So there we apply conservation of charge. Okay, so that is second property. Now the third property is quantization. Quantization of charge, or charge is quantized. So what do you mean by quantization? Quantization, it simply means this charge cannot be like in a continuous manner. So first let me say, in the universe a fundamental charge is there. Fundamental charge means the smallest charge detected. That smallest charge detected, or the fundamental charge, is the charge of an electron. So which is the fundamental charge? Charge of electron. So electron's charge is the fundamental charge. So all other charges, suppose we write a charge Q. How can it be? It can be like Q equal to plus or minus NE, where N can take values like 1, 2, 3, etc. This is what in short the quantization property means. Okay, it can be any integer values. So Q can be plus or minus NE. It can be plus or minus charge, but it can be written as integral multiple of E. Here this E stands for this fundamental charge. So charge of an electron, no, we write it is actually 1.6 into negative 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 Coulomb. Charge of an electron is negative 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 Coulomb. So this value we write it as what? E. So E stands for negative 1.6. So the value of E is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 Coulomb. And what is the electron's charge? Negative E. That's how we write. Okay, so quantization means charge cannot be continuous. What do you mean by continuous? If somebody says the charge is 2.5 E, it's not possible, because 2.5, no, it's not possible. It can be either 2E or 3E, but it cannot be 2.5E. That's what quantization says. Charge cannot be continuous. It has to be quantized. So these are the three basic properties of charges, that is additivity, conservation and quantization. Okay. Now saying about charge, that means first we just mentioned mass and charge. No, charge is a fundamental or a inherent property, just like mass is an inherent property. So we'll just make a comparison between this charge and mass. So this mass and charge, as we said, similarity, they are inherent properties of matter. And what are differences are there? Points of differences. The first point of difference is this, that is mass will always be, so mass versus charge, that's what we are discussing now. Okay, so mass will always be positive, charge can be positive or negative. That is a point to be noted. Okay, then second point of what comparison, that means difference, it is mass will vary. Okay, it's not it will vary with the speed. It vary with the speed. That means when the object's speed changes, it will vary, but it do not vary. Which one? Charge do not vary with speed. So you may be getting surprised to see this. This is what we say relativity, theory of relativity. So in normal speeds, in our daily life situation, no, the usual speeds, the mass will not vary. Okay, it remains constant. But when it starts moving with the relativistic speed, very high speeds, okay, so this relativistic effect is applicable when the object starts moving at very high speeds. Relativistic speed means the speed which is very close to the speed of light. So at that speed only this mass variation with the speed is observed. But for charge, no, there is no variation in mass at all. So that is a point to be noted. So mass can only be positive where charge can be positive or negative, and this relativistic invariance of charge also is a point. So with that we conclude today's class.